Hello, today we are going to learn about mollusks. Mollusks belong to the phylum Mollusca, and the word mollusca means soft-bodied. Some of the characteristics of mollusks are that they have bilateral symmetry. So just like the nematodes, the platyhelminths, they have the mirror image halves. But then they also have a true coelom, and a coelom is a body cavity where internal organs are suspended from the body wall. Here is an example. This specific example is a worm from the annelid phylum, which we'll get to, which is an earthworm. But true coelom first shows up here in the mollusks. We saw that in the nematodes, they had a pseudocoelom, so they were that in-between species from the platyhelminths that had a gastrovascular cavity, to where we had a pseudocoelom, so we had kind of that fake body cavity, and now we have a full-blown true body cavity where the digestive tract, those organs, are suspended from the walls of the body cavity. Most mollusks are going to have a three-chambered heart, and they also have an open circulatory system. This means that blood is going to fill around the body organs. There's no vessels to hold that blood inside of them. The exception here is that octopuses and squid, they do have veins and arteries to keep that blood inside of. So open circulatory is opposite of a closed circulatory system, which is what we have. We have veins, arteries, those vessels that contain the blood. For breathing, most mollusks are going to breathe using gills because they are an underwater creature. Here you can see this is an example of a clam with gills, or this might be an oyster, but it is a organism that has gills because it needs to be able to pull oxygen from the water. So gills are the organ that allows that to happen, just like fish have gills. Gills are going to have the water pass over them, and in the process they're going to pull oxygen from the water, as opposed to lungs. And we see here there are some land mollusks like slugs and snails that have a primitive lung, which is going to be able to pull oxygen from the air like we do. Like nematodes, mollusks have separate male and female sexes, and they are going to reproduce sexually, and they can have either external or internal fertilization. In the case of octopuses, we can see that they have internal fertilization. Here's the male octopus and here's the female octopus, and he will actually inject the sperm into the female to reach the ovaries to fertilize that egg. In other organisms like the slugs and the snails, they're going to lay eggs, and then the male will come and fertilize the eggs externally. There are three classes of mollusks. The first is the gastropoda. Gastro means stomach, and poda or pod means foot. So a gastropod is basically a stomach and a foot, and this is snails, slugs, and nudibranchs or nudibranchs, however you want to say it. Here's an example of a slug, here's a snail, and here's a nudibranch. These are going to be, these two here are going to be primarily land-based, although snails can exist in the water. And then nudibranchs are marine-based, more of a sea-type slug. One unique characteristic of the gastropods is that they have this rasping tongue called the radula, and that is going to help them consume the food that they need. If you ever YouTube a snail eating, you can see up close that radula rasping away at leaves and stuff like that it's on, and so it's really cool to kind of see that. The next class of mollusk is the cephalopod, and ceph means head and poda means foot. So these are primarily head, feet, and this includes octopus, squid, and the nautilus. This is a nautilus here. As you can see, it has a shell. This is an octopus, and this is a squid. Both of those do not have shells, but the octopus does have a beak. and their beak is where their mouth is, just like we would think of kind of like a bird beak. And that's like the only hard part of their body. Octopus are very smart. They have a well-developed brain. They are highly intelligent creatures. And because of this, keeping them in a place like a zoo or anywhere like that is very difficult because they're known as like escape artists. They're constantly trying to find different ways to escape. So zookeepers and people that run aquariums, etc., they have to constantly be keeping them active and engaged so that they don't escape. They have to have other ways for them to occupy that brain. Otherwise, they will look for different methods and ways to escape. And as long as that beak can fit through an opening, they can get through. So they're really smart and they don't have to have a very large opening to escape. The last class of mollusks are the bivalves or bivalvia, and this means two valves. As you can see here, these are all creatures that have two shells that are hinged, giving us that bivalve. The top here, this top picture is a picture of freshwater clams. The next picture below that are oysters. The one below that is another freshwater clam. I just wanted to show you that its foot is out, which I think is really cool. We don't often think of clams as mobile creatures and might even consider them sessile just based off our own knowledge, but they are very movable creatures. They use their foot to get around. And here is a marine clam, and they are going to be a lot more sessile than these other clams and oysters, but they still do move and respond to their surroundings. If a scuba diver were to swim and cast a shadow over that clam, it might notice that that clam closes up to protect itself a little bit more. And so it has the ability to respond and react to the surroundings. That is the end of our notes for mollusks.